Hey guys, it's Lady Lynn from Crafters World. We're going to be making this beautiful rose today. It's very realistic looking and it's made just out of foam sheets. Okay, we're going to start with our white sheets of foam and we are going to cut them into squares. We need 3 size squares because we're going to use smaller ones for the center of our rose, a little bit bigger ones for the middle, and then a little bit bigger ones for the back part. So you're going to want to cut your foam into 3 different sizes. One will be 1.5 inch. Then we need 1 3/4 inch. And then 2-inch squares. So whatever cutting tool you want to use is fine. I like to use these rotary ones because they're much easier, and then use a square, which keeps the squares pretty even. So go ahead and cut out 10 of each size. And then once you get all your squares cut out, we're going to start cutting them into petals. Okay, now that we have our squares, we have 3 different sizes. We have 1.5 inch, 1 3/4 inches, and 2 inches. We're going to go ahead and start cutting these out into petals. And you'll do this by taking your first one of each one to use as a template. We're going to start about 1/8 of an inch in so that we have a small flat part at the bottom. Fold it in half, and then we're going to just cut around like this and make it into a petal shape. Once you have your first petal shape, you can use this as a template to cut out the rest of them. Then go ahead and do the same with the other sizes. Fold it in half, leave a small part to have a flat bottom, and just cut around, and then you can use that one as a template to cut out the rest of them. And same thing with our last one. So go ahead and go through and cut out all of your petals in each size, and make sure you keep the sizes separate so that we make sure we know which ones go where. Okay, now that we have all our petals cut out, we're going to start coloring these with our oil pastels and stretching them into the shape that we want so that they'll look a lot more like real petals. Okay, we're going to start out with some pink here, and we're going to very lightly just color around the top here, leaving this bottom part white. Okay, do the same on the back side as well. Just gently color it in. If you get these little darker spots here, either dust it off like this or just don't worry about it, because they will rub into it when we're working with them. Okay. And then you can go back through and put a couple of darker spots in. Just a little bit of contrast to add to it. Then we're going to take this purple, well, it's magenta, and it's a darker color, and we're going to color around the edges starting about here, about maybe 1/2 inch up. We're going to color the edges really, really dark. That's going to give our petals a really nice 3D dynamic once we're done shaping them. So once you have the sides nice and dark and you've got your front and back colored in, now we're going to start shaping them. The trick to these is to stretch them very carefully so that they don't rip, by just gently tugging them and giving it kind of a bowl shape. And you can see how our pink is kind of rubbing in. And we're going to darken that a little bit more too once we're done shaping it. That's just to get that initial color into the foam. Okay, so just very gently shape it by tugging it, thinning it out into kind of a bowl shape like this. And now, in order to get our ruffles, we're going to kind of gently go around the edges and very gently tug away from each other like this. And this part you have to be very careful with because it can rip if you're not careful. Okay, so now we've got kind of a ruffled look here. Okay, now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to kind of crinkle it like this. So get it all nice and crinkled, and then we're going to squeeze and twist between our fingers really tight and really good until it's really thin. When you feel it getting as thin as it'll possibly go, then you're done. So just kind of twist it, turn it, get some good crinkles in there. This is going to give our petal the texture that we need. And then we can go back over it with our oil pastel to color in some of those textured spots to really make it pop. So once you've got that done, just very gently open it and you're going to see all these nice little creases, okay? And it's getting more of a realistic look to it. And just gently kind of open it back up a little bit. And then go ahead and go back and get your oil pastel again, your pink, and just very gently kind of rub it along the sides, just like this, in spots where you see some good creases. And as you can see, these creases that are kind of sticking up are getting a little bit darker than the rest of it. And do the same on the back side. Just a little tiny bit, maybe a little bit around the tip. And this is where it becomes an art. This is basically just eyeball it and see what looks good to you. Where do you want some dark spots? Where do you want some lighter spots, you know? And if your edges are not dark anymore from rubbing them, then you can go ahead and go back through and just kind of color in a little bit more. And you can even add a couple more darker spots with your purple if you'd like. And gives it a really nice color. Okay, once we're done with that, we're going to kind of give it that bowl shape again like this. Okay. And then we're going to take green. Because rose petals have a certain amount of green right near the bottoms, and we're going to very, very lightly, just right down the center, put a touch of green. Okay, and just kind of rub it in a little. Do the same on the back, just a touch right near the bottom. Okay, now you can see it's looking a lot more realistic. You can also take your lighter and very gently or very quickly rub it along the edge to get it just a little warm, and then tug it the opposite ways like this to give it little curves, and do that kind of all around. Just give it a couple of really good curves in there. Okay, and as you can see, we have all these nice little wrinkles and these nice little furls up here, so we've got a really good petal shape going on now. We're going to be doing this to every single one of our petals in all the sizes. So I'll show you again. Just take your pink or whatever color you want them to be. They can be yellow, red, blue, whatever color you want. Take your lighter color and just very gently color around the tops, leaving that middle part white. And make sure you do the same to the back. And then you can add a couple of more kind of darker lines in there. Okay, then we're going to take the dark crayon or oil pastel and just color around the edges. And then once we have that done, we're going to go ahead and shape it. So once again, you just work with your fingers, your thumbs here mostly, and these fingers back here will kind of hold it, and you just very carefully stretch it out. Just stretch it, kind of rubbing your fingers along just to give it a little bit of a stretch and a little bit of a bowl shape here. And then very carefully stretch the edges If you do rip one, just cut out another square, or sometimes you can actually get away with gluing it back together depending on how it's ripped and where it's ripped. But these don't have to be perfect, and some petals actually do have small tears in them in real life, so I mean, even if you get a small tear, it's okay. It'll just look that much more realistic. Okay, so now we've got our edge pulled out here. Now we're going to crinkle it up, give it some really good little creases in here, and then start twisting and rolling it really good, really tight. Just twist and push and roll until it really thins out. And this is going to help blend in the colors as well as we're doing this. You can be a little rough with it at this point because you really want to give these a really good texture. And then carefully open it, and all the places that you see these creases, you can go back through with your darker crayon and just very lightly go across them on the sides so that you're adding a couple more lines in there, okay? There you go. And then your edges should still be a little bit dark. And then now I'm just going to kind of pull it back out a little bit in the center here, give it that bowl shape again. And then we're going to take our green and just put a touch down the middle, just a really light little bit there. And as you can see, it's looking pretty realistic now. And do the same to the back as well. So do this for all of your petals, and once you have all of your petal sizes done, we're going to go ahead and start gluing it together. And make sure you keep your sizes separate so you can put the smaller ones in the middle, and then we'll put on a little bit bigger ones, and then we'll put on the biggest ones. So go ahead and color your petals in, and we'll go on to the next step. Okay, now that we have all of our petals, we got 3 piles here, our smaller ones, our medium ones, and our larger ones. We're going to go ahead and make our center mount. So I'm going to push these out of the way a little bit here. What we're going to need is our piece of aluminum foil. We're going to ball it up and start rolling it in our hands to give it kind of a ball shape. And then you're going to shape it into kind of a pear shape. So just kind of squeeze it at the top a little bit more than you squeeze it at the bottom. Kind of round it out. Make it look almost like a Hershey's Kiss. And this is going to be the center that we're going to put our petals around. Okay, once you have that shaped, go ahead and get your dowel that's sharpened at one end, or you can even use a pencil if you don't have a dowel, and then stick it through the bottom to make a little bit of a hole. And then we're going to go ahead and put a drop of hot glue in there to hold it. We're going to pull this out later, and it will pull out, so go ahead and put a touch of hot glue in there, and then stick your dowel in there and let it kind of set for a sec there. Okay, on this first round we're going to take our smaller ones, and we're going to start by having them kind of closed like this at the top. That way we make that small part in the middle that's kind of curled like this, okay? So go ahead and get your hot glue gun out. And start putting some glue on. And just go ahead and make sure you get the bottom part around underneath the bottom as it comes around under here, and glue the sides here too all the way down. And we're going to do that to the first four or five of these so that we can cover this aluminum foil part and make that center point. Make sure you get your glue underneath and everything. Okay. Alright, now we're going to take another one. And you can work back and forth, side to side, or around, just whatever's easiest for you. So just put some more glue on there. And get another petal. And start putting it on there and make sure it goes around. You want to try to hide that center part with the aluminum foil as much as possible. Once we have the center part kind of covered, then we're going to start putting our petals around that kind of stick out a little bit. And see, having this dowel in here helps it to, you know, so you can hold it better. It's a lot harder to try to hold it if you're just holding this little center piece here, okay? Okay. Sorry if my hands are a little bit shaky. It took a lot of work to do all these petals. So, just keep going around. And close them on up. And then probably one right here and one right here, and then we'll be done with that center piece being all nice and covered. Okay, so we'll do one on this side. Make sure that gets underneath there. Do a little bit up the sides. And then one more on this part right here is what I'm going to put on there. And this is again where it becomes basically an art. You might not use all your petals and you might need more petals. It just depends on how you want your flower to look and how full you want it to be. And you just kind of eyeball it as you go along and kind of decide where you want to put your petals as you go. Okay, after this one, we're not going to close it up as much anymore, okay? We're just going to go ahead and start pasting them on. Once you get all your small ones on, then we're going to go to the next size. And then once we have all those ones on, we're going to go to the next size after that. So make sure when you have like two petals like this and you have this gap in between here, that's a good place to put another petal. Okay, so you can just kind of start right here and just put it along the bottom and make sure you get these up underneath near your dowel. Okay, and then just kind of tack them up a little bit. Now these ones, because our aluminum foil is covered, we don't have to tack them all the way to the top. We want them to kind of start sticking out now. And you can work in a round, or you can work, you know, this side, just whatever you prefer. So just put some along the bottom and start putting them on. So we're going to do this to all of our petals, starting with the smallest, then going all the way to the biggest, around and around till we have every single petal glued to our mount here. And once we're done with that, then we're going to go ahead and pull out our dowel. And the trick is on these outer ones here is to get just a little bit of glue underneath rather than up the sides, so that they'll start kind of folding out. So just put some underneath there and just stick the bottom. Okay, and make sure the way that they're curved, your little bowl shape is pointed towards the center. If you point it the other way, it might not look right. We got two more of the little ones, and then I'm going to move on to the next size here. Okay, now that we have all the small ones on, you can already see that it's really starting to look like a pretty little rose here. So now we can go to the next bigger size, and once again just put a little bit of glue underneath only and start tacking on your next size just like we did the first ones. Okay, we have all of our petals on and it's looking really beautiful now, and you can kind of open some of them up if you want, especially around this edge part here. And now we're going to go ahead and take this out, our dowel, and then we're going to stick our leaves on. And one thing I like to do is, you see this hole in the bottom here, I like to go ahead and just fill it in with some glue. That kind of helps it to hold those petals in. Let me get another glue stick. And it gives it a solid bottom there. So just go ahead and kind of fill that in with some glue. That way you don't have a dent in the bottom when you put your backing on. And as we're letting this cool down, we'll start making our leaves. Okay, now we're going to get our green sheet out. Okay, we're going to go ahead and cut out 3 or 4 leaves, and you can measure this out to be about 3 inches wide, and then maybe about 2 inches, 1.5 inches to 2 inches the other way right here. And you don't have to measure these perfectly. You can if you would like to. I'm gonna do 4 leaves here. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna take these scissors that are the zigzags to cut our leaves out so that they have that nice jagged edge. And we're going to leave a small part right here that's a little bit flat, so just kind of start over this way a little bit and cut around to the top to a point there, so we have a good leaf look. These ones aren't that sharp anymore, they've been used a lot. You can also just cut them regular with scissors. You don't have to have the jagged edges, or you can use your scissors to make the jagged edges if you don't have these kind of scissors, okay? And that's 1 leaf. So let's do all of our leaves the same way, and then I'm going to show you how to make the impressions in them, the lines like down the center and up the sides, okay? Okay, now that we've got our leaves cut out, let's go ahead and make our tool impressions. So get out your tool for making these lines, and go ahead and start right in the middle and just make a line right down the center, and then make some lines going from the center up to the sides, and that way it looks more like a leaf. And do this to all of your leaves. And then we're going to kind of shape them and add just a little bit more color to them. Okay, you're going to want to take a couple different colored greens and kind of darken this middle part here just a little bit where the line is, and as well as these lines right here. Just go ahead and kind of darken those in a little bit. And you don't have to do it too much, just enough to give it a couple of different colors. And then you can take a little bit of color and just add some kind of highlights here and there. Just give it some really good dynamics here. And this is where art will come in again. You can even put some lighter greens in there, just whatever you feel looks the best, okay? Okay, now we're going to go ahead and shape them. And all we're going to do is just kind of rub our finger along the back part and just give it a little bit of a curl like this. And just give it a little bit of a stretch, just a touch, and a little bit of a curl under, okay? And we're going to do all of our leaves like this, and then we're going to go ahead and glue them on to the bottom here, and then we'll have a really beautiful looking rose, and then we're going to go ahead and put our backing on, okay? So go ahead and do the rest of your leaves and get those glued on underneath, and then we'll do our backing. Okay, I've actually made an executive decision here and decided to just use 2 leaves. I think I like how that looks better. And like I said, it's all just about what you prefer. You don't even have to put leaves on it if you don't want to. You could just leave it without any leaves. Okay, now what we're going to do, since we have our leaves on and our roses all put together, is we're going to put on the backing. So go ahead and get your piece of felt. You should have 2 pieces. If you're putting it on a headband, you probably will only need 1 piece. But since I'm going to be putting mine on a French clip, then I need 2 pieces. So we're going to cut out a circle that's going to fit over the bottom. So just start cutting out a circle. You'd rather it be too big at first than too small. So start kind of big, and then you can always trim it down to whatever size you find you need. So I'm going to check it here and see. Probably a little bit smaller than that. So let me go ahead and just trim this up a little bit. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and glue this on, and then we're going to put our French clip on, or just whatever backing you choose. And the reason why we have the second piece of green felt is I'm going to cut a smaller circle so that when I put this on, I'm going to take it apart and put a green piece just right over this to make it look better. And you'll see how that looks when I'm done here. So go ahead and glue on your felt circle to the bottom of your flower. And make sure that all the edges are tacked down. You may need to add a couple more spots of glue here and there. And the bottom should be fairly flat. You want it just flat enough that you can put a backing on, but not extremely flat that it takes away from the curvature of the rose. So just make sure those are all tacked down real good. Okay. And you could put these on any kind of clip you want. You could put them on a soft headband, hard headband, French clip, alligator clip, just whatever you prefer. Or you can even put a pin back on it. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and take my French clip apart and glue it on to my rose. And let's see, I want it to sit in the hair like this. So I'm going to put it on like that. So just put a little bit of glue and stick it to the back here. And finishing touches are really important on hair bows. So make sure that you don't cheat yourself on really tying up any kind of raw ends and stuff. And this is why I have this smaller one. It's going to make sure that our clip stays on really well. Let's see, that might be too big, yeah. And we're going to just cover it like that. The felt will stick to each other a lot better than the metal will still stick to the felt. So I like to put another piece of felt over the middle part of my clip so that it stays on better. That way it won't just come off with, you know, a small tug. Kids can be really rough on hair bows, so. And you can do this same thing with an alligator clip as well. Just put it over one part of it. And then I'm going to go ahead and put this back together. Now let me tack this down first. And if you get these little glue strings anywhere, just go ahead and pull them off. They come off fairly easily. Then I'm going to put my backing back together and we will be finished. Okay, we are now done with our rose. And it looks quite beautiful. I hope you had fun today, and I thank you for watching my video. Hope that you'll subscribe so you can keep an eye out for videos to come. And thank you for joining me today.